It's
Mm.
so lovely to see your beautiful face this morning.
Thank you.
It has
Mm.
to have been probably 30 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, ma'am. But it's delightful to see you. And hello, everybody in the
Good to
group.
see
I'm
you too.
new. I'm Judy. Um, I am just coming through, as Lily described, a major health experience, which is not going very well, but I am doing everything I can to pull in all of the tools I like to use to stay positive and happy and accepting of what is and patient with what is to come and whatnot. I know Carolyn Mays through an entirely different source than you folks. She and I both did the Hoffman process. And so I've had the pleasure of knowing her in that environment. And my goodness, she is one powerful woman. And Lily, my deepest gratitude to you for our session together and for bringing me to this group, because on the days when I really truly haven't felt well, the little ping I get on my phone, see another perky message from somebody or a gratitude message has just been lovely. So thank you all very much for including me.
Oh, thank you for being here, Judy. Thank you for being here. Billy, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, sweetheart?
Sure. I too knew Chippo about 30 years ago. She was Chippo Chimesso. Sorry, that's how I knew you then. You were my first massage therapist,
Yeah.
and taught me a few different things, and put me on the path to becoming a massage therapist. And then I became a Reiki master as well. And most recently, I've taken a break from that. The pandemic, as it is, it sort of put me on a new path, just to have a little bit of a break from body work right now to work on myself. I'm still working. I'm just doing something else, and so I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have met Lily, and it's I'm following a few different paths right now with self healing. I'm doing my Reiki, which I do almost every day, but I've started studying the Silva method, which
Yeah.
which resonates, which resonates really deeply for me,
Mm.
um, because I really believe in taking taking responsibility for your own health and actively participating in your own health. So I really like which was being said earlier, because I've let in the past, I've let sort of other people sort of guide me, and I too, I use the holistic side, and I use the traditional Western medicine as well, because I have a few different situations going on in my life where I tried to do it without medication, and it just really, there were too many barriers to getting to where I needed to go. So I've started taking medication again for about a year now, and it's allowing me to go deeper into different areas, um, to be able um, to have the time and the focus to be able to see where I can go. Whereas before I was, flitting from thing to thing, and I couldn't stay focused, and I was a lot more hyper, than I was before, and I was a lot more angry than I am right now. I'm more at peace than I've ever been, and I find it difficult. I just find it difficult these days to have patience, because I have, like all of us, there's nowhere to go and there's nothing to do. Well, there's lots to do, but there's nowhere to go right now, so to speak. So it's a perfect time to work on presence, and to be patient. And
Mm.
that's my biggest lesson, is what I need to do is to work on patience and to be present, because I've spent so much time in the past and the future that it's hard to recognize being present sometimes. But I'm getting there, and I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for, and I say yes to everything now. When Lily invited me, it was like yes. When different things come up, I say yes. And if it's for me, great. If it's not for me, then I'll find something else.
Mm.
So thanks, Lily.
Oh, wow, Billy. Thank you for being
Yeah.
here and for the lesson and the reminder of the gift of what we've been going through with shutdown. You know, it's, I'm sure others can identify that it has given us the opportunity to go inside. And
Mhm.
perhaps you and I can talk every day, because that's my big lesson right now is intolerance. I mean, it's crazy, the stuff that comes out of my mouth. And knowing what I know and still watching myself say, and the intolerance has been really interesting, because normally I could break away. I could go off to work. I could get it, whatever. Now it's no, you are here now, deal with it. And that whole anxiety stuff comes up, you know? So yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for that message for all of us. Anybody else? Susan, would you like to introduce yourselves? You just need, are you okay? Yeah, there you go.
So I'm Susan, and this is my husband, Bruce, and we own and operate the Living Science Wellness Center in Stittsville, and we just moved to a new location that's closer to nature. We have a holistic, natural approach, and work with a lot of energy medicine, and Bruce does nutrition, a lot of live blood cell analysis. So it's kind of all encompassing. So Billy, what you just said resonated with us so deeply. It's just lovely to be here. And thank you, Lily.
Well, thank you for being here. So are you, with the blood analysis is something that for myself and certainly for my husband, I'd be really interested in seeing Bruce. And Bruce, it's so good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So we'll be waiting now until after June the 2nd. Oh, there he is. We'll after Norm leaves, we'll go back to discussion. And because I'm hoping Louise and others will hey,
Speedy
Dr.
Gonzalez.
Seeley, how are you, sweetheart?
I know.
So good to see you. Norm, look who's here with
Hi.
us.
Hi, Norm.
Howdy, how are you?
Do you know who this is? Remember
I
me?
do, Christopher.
No.
I call you Chippo.
There you go. How are you? Good to see you in person. Wow.
Mutual. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great.
We could have a long conversation, but I'm doing well.
Well, I'm glad. That's all that matters, really.
Right, exactly.
In
How are
today's
you?
world, that really matters.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Excellent, thank you. I still get up at 4 a.m. every morning, do 2 hours of exercise before the day begins.
Wow. Do you still have the horses?
No, unfortunately, dear Shardy died 10
Right.
years ago.
Right.
And I didn't know how to take care of the horses, so I gave them good homes, and I gave the farm actually to university, Missouri State
Oh,
University. So
right.
I have lifelong use of my home, but they take care of the farm.
Okay, nice. Oh, good to see you. I was so excited when Lily says, "Hey, Norm is gonna be here tomorrow. Come on." So I said, "Yes." I dropped everything. I said, "I'll come and yeah."
So where are you?
I'm still in Ottawa.
Okay, good.
Yeah, in Canada. Yeah.
So Norm, thank you so much. We are so honored for you to be here, and that you were so quick to say yes. It is actually very sacred. We don't take this for granted.
Well, thank you.
Especially with all that you've been teaching us for these last 25 years. Help me pronounce Chipo's name properly, people. Sorry.
Chipo.
Tremeso. I went back to my full name.
Chipo Tremeso.
Yeah, I got it.
Do you know that you had mentioned it was 10 years ago that you studied with Carolyn? I did that 15 years ago. So I think it's even longer than 10. It's almost like 20 years that we've been doing these studies with Dr. Shealy and Carolyn. So Dr. Shealy, what I thought we would discuss today, if it's okay with you, because one of the things that's been very, very helpful for me is your autogenics. We all actually, before we started, when everybody came online this morning, I took them through it, but I'd like for you to take us through it and the reasons why. But the big thing is your bliss oils and how to use them, how to get them, and anything else that you would like to discuss this morning. And if you're open to questions, that would be great.
Okay, well, of course, the thing that really got me started in looking, at alternatives was the fact that too many patients were on drugs and had too many surgeries. I came to the conclusion that one back surgery could be sometimes essential, but by the time they had 2, 3, and 4, it was beyond anybody's help. And I decided somebody has to find out what to do with these people who fail everything conventional medicine has to offer. Then in 1972, I learned about biofeedback and autogenic training. In fact, Elmer Green, who created biofeedback, originally called it autogenic feedback training based upon the original autogenic training. When I learned about it, there were 2,600 scientific references on this particular technique. Over the next few years, it was so important that I went back and got a PhD in psychology, and I was studying really self-regulation, self-control. How do you really do this? And I came up with many variations on the basic theme of biogenics, of autogenic training, which I call biogenics. However, there are now 28,000 scientific references on the internet on autogenic training. It is the most studied self-control, self-regulation, meditation exercise in history. And it works. If you will do it, preferably 18 minutes twice a day for 3 months. After that, you get by with 1 or 2 minutes a day. And especially in the stupidemic for the last year and a half almost,
Stupidemic, love it.
I have to say it helps me detach from the unequivocal nonsense. I'm being kind since I'm being recorded. When I call it just a stupidemic, fake-ademic, it's worse than that. However, they're just 6 phrases, and you just relax and preferably recline, but you can do it sitting if you're in a comfortable position. And you breathe in, and as you breathe in, you say, my arms and legs in your own mind. And you repeat them after me. And as you breathe out, my arms and legs, as you breathe out, are heavy and warm. And you do that, many times. And then my heartbeat is calm and regular. My breathing is free and easy. My abdomen is warm. My forehead is cool. My mind is quiet and still. I am at peace. And in that brief a time, actually, you begin to go into the lowest arousal state. It quiets the body, the mind, and the emotions. And in my office, often with people with hypertension, I just do 4 repetitions of each phrase, and their blood pressure becomes normal. It works a minimum of 90% of the time to control hypertension. That's, by the way, twice as good as any drug in the world for hypertension.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So that's something that we can all practice. And Norm, you were saying when you start twice a day, 18 minutes each time?
Yes, and if anyone wants a copy of the recording, I give it to people free. They can send me an email, norm@normshealy.com, and I'll give them a copy of autogenic training.
Thank you, thank you. That's one of the gifts that you have, actually, so we know your heart chakra is working because you're giving and receiving always equally. We love that about you. So can you explain to us now about your bliss oils, how that came about, and whatever you feel is important for us to know?
Yes, indeed. Actually, in 2005, I came to the conclusion that if we could keep up our DHEA, the anti-stress hormone, our oxytocin, the nurturing bonding hormone, and keep our free radicals low, we ought to live 120 to 150 or 60 years. And I was able to do that. I already had the tools with electrical stimulation of these circuits in the body, which I discovered between 1995 and 2000. but it takes time. It took a lot of time to do it electrically. In 2011, my wife died, and the next day I got the nudge. Well, why don't you try to do it with essential oils? They'll work just as well. And I proved it with oxytocin first, the nurturing bonding hormone, which I wanted most at the moment. And within 4 days, I had all 5 of them converted from electricity to specific mixtures of essential oils. And of course, it took me a couple of months to prove it. But interestingly, when I first submitted the article for publication on this, the use of essential oils to stimulate acupuncture points, they turned it down until I called it transcutaneous acupuncture. Then they accepted it.
Okay. Interesting.
So basically, there are 5 of them in addition to the 3 I've already mentioned. There's water, which normalizes aldosterone, the hormone that controls water and potassium metabolism. And of course, calcitonin, that raises, keeps your bones strong, and it's actually strongest pain reliever the body produces. Fire. And once you learn the use of them, it takes you 30 seconds to do a whole circuit. Fire has 12 points. The other 4 have 13 points each. But you just touch, yeah, that's earth.
Crystal.
That looks like, must be.
Yeah, that's crystal, and this is water.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I can just add, Norm, before you finish, so that you also receive all the card with the points on it.
Most people have no
So
trouble
it's
just seeing where to put it. Interestingly, by the way, I'm working right now on one we're going to call Pain Bliss. It's very different from the others, but we've only had 5 people so far, and all of us think it is wonderful for reducing local pain. In fact, arm, hand, back, butt, you know, if it's not the whole body, if it's just an area, you actually roll it not on a point, but on the whole area. And within a minute or 2, it relieves pain.
So you're basically putting in different combination of oils than what you would put in these, or are they?
Yeah,
just
all 5 of them are different. They are intuitive received. You know, it'll take this and this and this to control whatever.
One of the other things that I use on a regular basis, and now I've got John, my husband, on it, is I order it from you all the time, the magnesium in the bottle.
Yes. 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. And interestingly, by the way, the blood level is a waste of money in blood. It's the intracellular level. Magnesium is inside your cells. 90+% of it is in the cells, not in the blood. And the only accurate test is to scrape under the tongue, like a pap smear of the tongue, and send it off to Intracellular Diagnostics in Medford, Oregon. It's about $150 or $60 for the test, and it takes 2 weeks. But 80% of people are deficient. And magnesium on the skin is absorbed 10 times better and faster than it is through the mouth. Incidentally, just a week ago, one of my students reported that she cured herself of a mitral valve prolapse by putting the magnesium lotion over her heart. Now, I always thought once it got in the blood, it didn't matter. But she says putting it over the heart makes a big difference.
Interesting. Thank you for that. So magnesium is like something that we really should have on our counter, like we would salt and pepper. It's just a natural thing. I remember you saying one time, you just take it, rub a little bit in your butt, and away you go.
That's right. And the reason I put it on the buttocks is you can put up your undershorts or your underpants or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And because they hug the body. The rest of the rest of your clothes are a little bit looser on the body.
That makes sense. Thank you. That makes perfect sense. Can I go back to the oils again?
Of course.
Okay. So what would be the difference then, the Water Bliss versus the Air Bliss?
Okay, air raises oxytocin, which is the nurturing bonding hormone, and it is excellent for depression and anxiety.
The air.
Yes.
Good to know.
Water actually, interestingly, aldosterone is either high or low. Most of these are normal or low, but aldosterone can be high or low. And the problems with aldosterone are either hypertension and or congestion, edema, swelling. So it helps. I had one man whose legs were twice normal size all his life. He's born with it. Within 1 month, he had normal sized legs for the first time in his life.
Wow, interesting. So one of the things that I'd like to be able to express to everybody is that I have no affiliation with the Shealy, what's online to shop for, etc. But I really highly would recommend that you go to Dr. Shealy's website and take a look at this. He also has a book, many books, but one of my favorite is The Medical Intuition. And we don't need to become medical intuitives to read that book. There's so much rich information in there that we are our own medical intuitive. As we said earlier before Dr. Shealy came on, know our bodies and ourselves enough that before you go to the doctor, you tell them what's wrong and then they can work with you, you know, and yeah, he's such an advocate of that type of work. So please go to his website and take a look at what is available. So do we have questions that we'd like to ask? If I could get you to raise your hand and then ask you to unmute with your questions.
Wonderful.
Anybody? Don't be shy.
I like to talk, so give me some questions.
Yeah, we love listening to your wisdom. Cheyenne, I see a big grin on your face, sweetheart, and you're like I am. We're the fairies with the puck. So you must have a question for our puck today.
Taking it all in. I'm like only kind of familiar with Norm's work through Caroline.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating to hear him actually speak and explain his process and what he's learning. Yeah, I wouldn't even know what to ask right now. I feel like my brain is like downloading everything and taking it in.
Good, that's great. I'd like to emphasize also, this is being recorded, but it's not something I put on YouTube or online. It's for you only. So if you ask Lily, can you send me that recording? That's where it goes. It doesn't go online. So it's very important that you know that, so that that intimacy and confidence is there between us. Yes, Anne.
Well, I've been blessed all my life with what I call downloads. When I was in medical school, I got into trouble twice because I made a diagnosis I wasn't supposed to be able to make twice. When I was sophomore in medical school, we were told to examine the patient physically, but not ask them any questions. And they didn't think we could make the diagnosis on the physical exam. Well, I made the diagnosis and the guy accused me of cheating. 2 years later, he apologized. He recognized that I would not cheat. And the other time, I made a diagnosis of sarcoidosis, a very rare disorder of the pituitary gland. The chief of endocrinology was the rounding person on Monday. He said, "How can you make that diagnosis?" Well, I did. I don't know. It came. And he and I wrote a definitive paper, the first paper on that from Duke University.
Wow.
So all my inventions and, come to me that way. And of course, I believe all creativity comes from intuition, whether it's poetry or art or creative writing, whatever, and science. It's an idea. Oh, yeah, let's try that.
Norm, one of the things that you have taught us also is that we all are intuitive. It's
Yes.
Practicing with skill, believing in ourselves enough that the oneness, but it takes practice. And I was telling the group before you came on that I'm flunking your course terribly with the names that you're giving us and the ages. And normally not that I consider myself an intuitive, but I have been experiencing downloads like yourself since childhood. And that's why I ended up doing the work that I'm doing. But it's skill, and everybody is going to be different. Carolyn was brilliant at getting a name with an age. I can't die. I'm not doing well with that. With that, I have my own little way of doing things, and it's very interesting. And the reason I mention this is for each and every one of us to understand that it isn't that somebody is more special than the other. We are all receiving this at the same time, especially as a collective. Most of us are in fear of believing how empowering we can be by owning that. But then we have to practice it. It takes skill.
Yes, I'm in the midst right now, actually the 5th month of teaching medical intuition to a group of students. And every month I give them 2 or 3 intuitive exercises to practice.
Mhm.
Like when the phone rings, who's calling?
Yeah.
Practice that. Throwing dice and trying to know what the number's going to be before they land, or trying to control the dice. I picked up those 2 from the first real parapsychologist in the world at Duke University when I was in undergraduate school, Dr. J.B. Ryan. And you know, it's just a question of work and practice.
Exactly. Because who in this group, who among you, when you're not feeling well, intuitively, you know what's going on, but we get into the headspace of, so we'll go somewhere else and let them tell us what's wrong. We do know, we do. You cannot not know, as the beautiful human beings that we are. So Anne has a question. So Anne, can you unmute? Thank you.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, so medical intuitive is very much like I think what you're saying is it's like a generally similar to other intuition you might get about something.
Exactly. There are some, Carolyn Mace is the one I've studied the most and the most accurate in the world to this point in time, to my knowledge. But I met, first one I met was in 1972, Henry Rucker. Henry was only 75% accurate, which is darn good, if you know nothing. But he was the best one-on-one counselor I've ever known in my life. And Dr. Robert Lightman in Baltimore can tell me what your Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory is. Each subdivision, he give me the score on it. So different strokes for different folks.
So, yeah, I was just wondering how you do that. So would you say then that's a knowing rather than you don't see the organs like they do on the Good Doctor? You're not seeing the organs and all that. You just have a knowing that, might be a heart issue or something?
Yes. I remember one woman who walked in with headaches. Now, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people with headaches. The first question I asked her, why are you worried about a brain cancer? It turned out her best friend died of a brain cancer 6 months earlier. So it's just sudden knowing.
Thank you. That's interesting.
And I think some of us will be, because of practice, will know things faster than somebody else that can intuitively know someone has a heart issue. One of the things that, and I know Sula is here from Bali, one of the things that I'm really, really good at is I'll know that you're expecting before you do. And it just comes in. And there's so many, I could write a book on it, on the different women that would say to me, how do you know? Nobody knows. Or no, Ibu, that's not possible. We can't have a baby. Yeah, there's one on the way. So, but I just trust that. I trust it. And sure enough, I got another, like Sula now sends me pictures of, I consider her my grandchild. There she is in Bali, because I knew she was coming way before mommy and daddy did. So some of us just, own what you know. Would you say that's correct, Norm? Like, just own what we know. We don't need to be out there grasping it because someone else is doing it one way. I cannot intuit with names and ages the way Carolyn does, and I'm not going to beat myself up about that. I'm good at other things.
Well, I agree. That's true, Lily. And of course, sometimes it takes you many years before you know what the answer is. I mean, it was actually over 30 years ago that I intuited what the frequencies of the chakras are. But it took me 25 years to find an engineer who could make something to stimulate those frequencies.
I would like to talk to you at some point, not today, because I know that others have questions, etc. But I've been in Bali, taking people to Bali now since 2017 or 2004. But one of the things that I was taught there is that each chakra is actually a planet. So when I'm teaching people the fate destiny, we always go into the chart and we look at exactly what's going on with the pattern of behavior. So when there's something in a chakra that's off, just look at the chart and find out what energy is shaking us up that day. So at some point, I'd like to talk to you about that, because it's really interesting how we're able to put all the dots together.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're actually planets. Yeah. So the solar plexus, of course, is I always, you know how I like to swear, guys, so I won't swear because Dr. Norm is here today, but you know, the big one here in Saturn, man, when Saturn is squaring Saturn or squaring our sun, we feel like what's going on. But when you look at the chart and you think, oh, that chakra is off because of this. Okay, now I've got something to work with. That's why it's so important to quote unquote, know thyself, know thyself. And we're always going to have different tools and to know thyself. But from my perspective, between Dr. Norm and Carolyn's, it's worked for myself and some of the people that I work with. So Julie or Pat, does anybody else have a question that they'd like to ask Dr. Shealy today? Yes, Lynn.
Yeah, I'm fascinated about what you were talking about, the concept of magnesium on the skin rather than taking it internally.
Yeah.
Can you go into more detail on that?
Well, yes, back in the 90s, I began to recognize that magnesium deficiency was common. And I met a man out in Nevada who was playing around with all kinds of minerals. And he produced essentially a swimming pool loaded with magnesium chloride. And once I tested that, I came home and started testing it on myself and others. I did a whole bunch of people where we measured their intracellular level by scraping under the tongue, you know, what I call a pap smear of the tongue. And it turns out that taking magnesium lotion, magnesium by mouth, if you have any fat, protein, or calcium in your gut at the same time, they prevent you from being able to absorb the magnesium. Well, when are you not going to have, you know, fat, protein, or calcium in the gut if you've eaten anything practically? And so we discovered, now you can bathe in it. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, but you have to use 4 times as much if you use magnesium chloride. You can get magnesium chloride crystals, and you can put 2 cups or 3 cups at most of that in the bathtub and soak it in for 20 minutes to get the same effect. But most people don't have time to relax like that now. I use the lotion when I don't take a soak. But actually, one of my favorite things is I love heat, and of course, a hot soak or even going into a sauna helps you detox. So about 4 days a week, I get my magnesium through soaking in magnesium chloride in the bathtub. The rest of the time, I use it on my buttocks with the lotion.
I wonder if you can put it in a hot tub. Can you put?
I'm sorry?
I wonder if you can put that in a hot tub.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have a 5-foot deep hot tub for jogging in the hot tub. and I use magnesium. Now there you have to use about 5 pounds.
And then you leave it in until you change the water, all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Great question.
Anybody else have another question?
I just have a comment about magnesium. When we were studying with you, do you remember you were getting us to take a magnesium bath once we get home? Yeah, yeah. I did, and it really felt good. I miss it. I'm not doing it now. And it's like, I need that magnesium. My body needs it. You know, orally, like you said, doesn't do anything for me.
Well, there are 350 different mechanisms in the body that need magnesium.
Yeah. soy bath, even just rubbing it on the skin, which is what I started doing. That's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
I personally have found that there's all kinds of magnesium lotions out there, but they all have other stuff in it. That's why
Yes.
I really love this product, and I've been using
And
this product
ours
for,
is
yeah.
the only one that's been proven to
Yeah.
raise your DHEA.
Yeah.
Remember, DHEA is the anti-stress hormone. And 90% of people begin to lose DHEA by age 40. And by age 80, the average person has lost 90% of what they had at age 25. There are 4 different techniques for restoring your anti-stress hormone DHEA. Magnesium lotion, our youth formula, which is vitamin C plus MSM, and natural progesterone cream, and the Fire Bliss. Those 4 things will raise your DHEA an average of 250%.
Wow. So a low, what happens when the DHEA is low? Like what actually attacks the body?
Low energy,
Okay.
low energy, and more anxiety.
Oh, mine's down there. Interesting. Susan and Bruce, do you have a question that you'd like to ask? There you go.
So what's your thoughts then, Dr. Shealy, on oral use of DHEA or transdermal?
Yeah, there are many studies on it, and it does restore your energy. However, there's a slight risk of increased prostate cancer and breast and ovary cancer when you take DHEA orally. I much prefer to raise it naturally.
Right. Okay.
There's no risk to doing it naturally.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Judy, do you have anything you'd like to ask Dr. Shealy today?
Here I come. Good morning, Dr. Shealy. It's a pleasure to meet you. I don't have any questions at the moment, but if it's okay, you might hear from me coming up. You're tweaking a lot of things for me that I believed very much years ago. I was blessed to start my journey in the mid 80s with a lot of these things, and have done my best to amalgamate these beliefs with medicine, since I am a nurse practitioner, and try to balance the two out. And I do a lot of energy work, but right now I'm going through my own health crisis. So I think I'll just take my time and process what you've talked about and do some more reading online and see what I can tweak with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Anybody else? Elaine? Kelly? Louise, you're being very quiet, sweetheart. I know you're a little shy, but this is why this is an intimate group, so we can just all hang out together, hanging out with our health today.
I'm just enjoying listening. Don't
So,
really have anything to contribute, but thank you.
thank you for being here with us this morning. Anybody else have questions? Sandy, you're good? Yes, Anne.
I have lots of questions. I'm trying to be quiet so everyone can. I'd like to know how so you were saying as a doctor, you got these intuition downloads and then, so I'd like to hear more about how you went from, being a regular medical person and got into being a holistic healer.
Well, again,
Be a million stories you have.
I introduced both 10 transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation and spinal cord stimulation for pain control back in the 60s. And all of a sudden, I was being sent 400 people a year requesting a spinal cord stimulator. And 94% of them were on Valium and Percodan and had 4 or more operations. I wouldn't stick a needle in them, let alone a knife to put in a pacemaker over the spinal cord. So in 1971, I decided somebody's got to find out what to do with these people who are such failures. The interesting thing about that, Anne, is, in my opinion, conventional medicine is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's excellent by any means. It is pretty good for acute illness. If you got a really acute illness, they can save your life. But if it doesn't work within 3 months, if you're not 50% or more better within 3 months, in my opinion, that becomes chronic. Medicine actually doesn't call it chronic for 6 months. But if you're not better in 3 months, you're not going to get better. And in my opinion, conventional medicine and being kind sucks for chronic disease of every kind. I don't know any named chronic disease for which I would allow conventional medicine in this body. Hypertension. Let's take one of the most common. 40% of Americans have high blood pressure. Taking 3 antihypertensive drugs, you've got a whopping 45% chance of success, a 55% chance that it won't be any better, and almost 100% chance that the drugs will make you chronically fatigued. And if you're a male, erectile dysfunction. I can cure high blood pressure 99.9% of the time without drugs and wean you from the drugs using the holistic approach. And the same is true with anxiety and depression and most chronic pain. So in my opinion, you've got to look at the body, the mind, the emotions, and the soul. And that's where medicine fails. It ain't got no soul.
So true.
So when you say you look at all those things, so when you have a client and you're looking at, let's say, the emotional causes for, would you intuit that as well, or would you have a discussion like a psychologist? How would you get to the bottom of the emotional issues or the soul issues?
Well, I even got a PhD in psychology, so I do know a bit about that. But, you know, interestingly, the other thing is, for a new patient, I ordinarily schedule a 1-hour appointment, and for a return visit, a 30-minute appointment instead of 5 to 7 minutes in the average doctor's office. I need time to be with the patient and to be certain that I've got everything okay. And I don't think you can do that in 5 minutes.
Thank you. Sula is joining us from Bali. Sula, sweetheart, do you have any questions for Dr. Norm today? We're so grateful that you're here with us.
Maybe just a little bit. How can we differ our intuitive from the other wild thought, like stereotype or placebo effect or SFP maybe, because sometimes they are almost the same in our mind, right?
I'm having difficulty understanding the question, Lily.
Yeah, I think she's asking, and Sula, you can let me know, sweetheart. I think she's asking, how do you know what energy is coming through intuitively?
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, because there's so much going on in
how
our
do I know?
heads. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's like I suddenly have words or images. I mean, to me, I think all new thought, if you will, is intuitive.
Right.
And but I do piece together, you know, even before I see a patient, I have them fill out 3 forms. A total life stress test tells me what everything in their life about stress, the total number of symptoms they have, and a Zoom test for depression. So I have all that information already, even before I talk to the patient. And so I give them a score. If they have a total life stress score of above 20, they're going to have more symptoms in general. And if they have more than 20 symptoms, they got some serious stress, etc. And if their score on the Zoom test for depression is 40 or above, they're already depressed. So I've got that information, and then that tells me what we need to focus on.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. And
So
thank you,
that
Sula.
means you have to do a pre-analysis first.
Sorry, Sula, can you repeat that?
So that means that we have to do a pre-analysis first to our client or whoever patient that come in, right?
Yes. And for you, Sula,
Um,
you know your patterns, right? You know your 12 patterns, etc. So you can kind of go in through that also, go in through that door for yourself. And what Dr. Shealy is saying is with his patients, he has all these questions. I mean, like, it's not just like a patient comes in and says, and he can pinpoint, oh yeah, this, and this. He has a criteria that he goes by as a
yeah.
professional. Yeah.
Okay.
Any one more? Yes, Lynn, we have time for one more question because I don't want to take
Okay.
up too much of Dr. Shealy's time. We're so grateful for him to be here today and hope he comes back.
Yes, thank you for being here. I was wondering, Dr. Shealy, if you're aware of, it's a device, low radiation device developed in Europe. And I was told, like by an orthopedic surgeon, that they are much more further ahead doing those devices than we are here in North America. But what it does is it works on the water in the molecules in the cells to get them in balance. I think it's called a UHF device, the one that was developed out of the University of Stockholm.
I don't happen to know that particular device, but I am, I call myself an electrical junkie because I love many different types of electricity for rebalancing the body. My favorite is the one called gamma PEMF, or pulsed electromagnetic frequency. In a normal healthy body, the cells have a minus 70 millivolt charge. If it gets down to minus 60 or minus 50, the cells go wild and anything can happen. If it gets down to minus 90, they're not working at all. So the PEMF device reestablishes the minus 70 millivolt charge on every cell in your body, but more importantly, it puts the brain into gamma. Gamma is called in the zone. And that was first discovered in Buddhist monks who meditate 8 hours a day. Well, we can cure opioid addiction by putting the gamma PEMF on the head for 2 hours a day. Interestingly, the opioid treatment centers are not interesting because their success rate is a whopping 17%. They have to treat people 5 or 6 times to get what I can get in one treatment. But for anxiety and depression and for local pain, it's even better than TENS most of the time. So that's my favorite of all the electrical gadgets that I've worked with personally.
Thank you.
Dr. Shealy, just I have one more question, and it's about something that's so natural in our environment, and it's water. And I know the other day at one of our courses, you spoke about fluoride and how that's so bad for us. And what my question is, though, is about the pH levels in water and what your thoughts are on that.
Well, normally water has a pH of 7.
Right.
Our body likes a pH of 7.4. And if you eat the wrong stuff, which is not enough vegetables and fruits, which the average American, by the way, only eats 2.2 servings of fruits and vegetables total a day. We need 8. The minimum is 5. So the average American is acid, and they need all kinds of alkalinizing fruits and vegetables.
Great. So because I know in Bali and in other places, especially at one of the places that we visit, he uses a machine, and the people, he's curing cancer actually. People come to him, Mangkok Made from Europe especially, and he's using bitter leaf, but the big thing is the water, and he puts them on a level of 11 pH, but that's only if they're really sick. So is there, I can't find the word to use right now, so excuse me, but is there something that we need to know about the difference between a pH in water between 7 and 11 and what's best for us and what isn't?
Well, alkaline water is certainly healthier than acid water. No question about that. Most people do improve by, one of the best ways to alkalinize is baking soda.
Oh, keep forgetting that. Yes.
A teaspoon of baking soda twice a day will help many people.
So see how simple that is? Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Is there anybody that has a burning question? Yes, Pat, can you unmute?
I have a question. I have been using for years now a tablespoon of a cider vinegar in a glass of water every morning, thinking that was beneficial to me. What's your thought on that?
Sounds okay. Yeah. That's good.
Okay, thank you.
We're all good? Well, Dr. Shealy, we do hope that you join us again some point in time. And I really want to emphasize to everybody that I love Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on Facebook because Dr. Shealy and Dr. Soren, is that how you pronounce his name?
That's right.
They have an excellent 1-hour show, and you can either type in your questions or call in. So please come join me on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, and share it with your friends. As I said to you earlier, Dr. Shealy's heart is so huge, and he's giving and receiving equally, that we have the advantage now with internet to be able to partake of such wisdom that he's giving us. So hopefully you'll join him on Wednesdays. So Dr. Shealy, is there anything you'd like to leave us with, my love, before you close off? Or you can stay with us till we finish. It's up to you, but I'm so grateful for this time.
Well, you're most welcome. And of course, if anybody wants a copy of autogenic training, I'll be happy to send it. Just send me an email, norm@normshealy.com, and I will give you a free MP3 of it.
Thank you. And we offer you a day of love. We love you, and we offer you all the joy. I always like to say, may you have fairy dust at your feet, joy in your heart, and laughter in your belly. And that's what we offer you today, my love.
Thank you.
Blessings to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Shealy. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chippo. Good.
Yes, I'll connect with you. I've been away for a while, so I will connect with you again. Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Dr. Shealy. Thank you very much.
Blessings.
Very much.
So does anybody have anything that they'd like to share? Or are we all like Cheyenne and just letting all that beautiful wisdom sink into us? Don't be shy.
I liked what he said about that electrical, he too uses that, because that device that I have, like now they are selling it on, I think it's even on Amazon, but it's 3 years that I've had mine, but it came from the University of Sweden. And so for him to say that he uses one that is similar, you go, okay,
Yeah.
I had taken it into a doctor I went to, and the doctor thought, okay, I got a live one here.
We're all going to join Dr. Shealy in living to be 125. Yeah, for sure.
Lily, thank you so much for this morning. You have reawakened in me my commitment to health and wellness, and combining Western medicine with a whole bunch of other wisdom and practices. And it's given me a new ray of hope, and bless you. I love you.
Oh, thank you. I love you too. But Judy, you said yes. It's you that's doing the work, my love. Every time we say yes to something, it just opens up a whole, I like to say, my husband would say a whole can of worms, but
Yeah.
So Bruce, what's your thoughts on I know Bruce is a holistic, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, Bruce?
Well, I've studied nutrition was my main thing about 25 years ago to get healthy myself. It's that common story with many practitioners. So
Yeah.
over time, Susan and I just been studying a lot of different techniques in that time frame, going through your health and suffering, and then awakening, and and just looking at many different options. So as a practitioner, really the nutrition, I have a master's degree in nutrition, but I use other tools in the toolbox, things and like live blood cell analysis I find is neat for a quick way to look and see what the person's terrain looks like, the environment. So you can quickly see the size and shape of cells and how clean the blood is, which is the capillary blood, and it's really close to what's in the tissues. So it's similar to what's in the bloodstream. So I do read blood work from, if you bring in blood work from a physician, you can see some ideas, but you can correlate it. What else? We actually do, we have the PEMF devices at our clinic. We have 2 of them, the pulsed electromagnetic field devices. These ones are called the Curatron devices. They've been around for about 35 years and it comes out of Israel. And we get a lot of great results in clinics. And essentially what they do is they expedite the healing of the body. By what Dr. Shealy says, you're basically bringing the charge of the cells up so that your body can heal more quickly. And that's really it. You're expediting your own body's innate and healing process. So we incorporate those types of things. So it's, a little bit on quote unquote, the pattern picker outer, the diagnostics in quotes, since we can't diagnose,
Right.
But it's really looking at patterns. And then Susan and I have different solutions from the mind, body, emotion piece and energy work and the nutrition piece. So that's how we work as a team. And that's some of the stuff, over the years, we find that's important. That's why we like talks and the techniques that you use, because really, people can look at the nutrition piece as much as they want, but at some point you can only shuffle the deck so much. You got to really look at the emotional, mental aspects as well. So you have to put it all together, just like you were talking about, medicine, on the physical level, drugs versus natural. I mean, they actually all do great things. The downside for medication is, like Dr. Shealy says, it's really acute. And so medications are amazing, and you don't come to see me if you need a bone, you don't need a bone stitched up, or even antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds are amazing at getting people out of a real deep space to get them to expedite the healing process. The downside is when people don't do anything themselves and they're on them for a decade or so and they've never really gone to any root cause. And that's why a lot of people just think, oh, all medicine's bad, but actually all medicine's good. It's just a matter of your timing. So I like what Dr. Shealy said in terms of like, hey, figure it out in 3 months. Most medications were designed for short term, get the symptoms, get you solved, get your counseling, get your care, and change your path, not to be dependent on it and just do all the same habits, right?
I am so grateful to hear you say this, Bruce. It's brilliant. And I'll tell you something where I had heard you remember we both had spoken at the women's
talk, yeah.
The women's talk?
Yeah.
And I will never forget when you had talked about antidepressants and how it allows us to gain weight. And for some reason, being as vain and arrogant and egotistical as I am, that was the thing I remember, right? Okay, the weight. Because between Melanie's suicide and my mother's death that year, I was really struggling. And my doctor said to me, Lily, we need to put you on something. So she put me on Cymbalta.
Mm-hmm.
But I was gaining weight, and while I was on it, I went back to drinking again. And most of you know, and I have no problems talking about my addiction. I mean, it's because it's who I am. And if I try to hide that, I'm not being authentic. So I went back into drinking again. So I took myself off the Cymbalta, which was crazy because I came off of it really fast.
Right.
But what I have discovered, and this is why I keep saying it's so important for us to know ourselves. And I'm not talking about astrology in a way, but get to know. And it's what you would just attribute it to. I see people, and myself included in that, where if I've got Uranus, what we call Uranus squaring the sun, I am 3 months in the crazies, which is where I was. And that energy gets into the brain. It's like electrified. It's like I'm buzzing. And so I need something to calm me down. So the Cymbalta helped that. And then, however, what the doctors are not privy to, and I'm sure they were eons ago, because astrology is way back there, is that transit leaves in 3 months. So the doctors don't know enough to say, okay, you're on this for this time. We've managed to balance you out. Now that energy is leaving you and it's time to wean you off. And that's what's so sad, is that we all do need something at some time, depending on what's going on in our charts, because that's what's real. and what is actually known out there in the medical community. I mean, God, look at Galliano, what I can't pronounce his name. I mean, he was locked up for what we're discussing today, right?
No, I would say also not just medication and knowing yourself, and then,
Yeah.
and I'm not an expert, or even I have to learn more about, from a chart standpoint, that's not my thing. I would just say that we're all connected. There's obviously universal geometry that has effects on all of us, and knowing that piece, I just think that you can even overdose on magnesium, you can overdose on calcium, you can overdose on all nutrients, and even knowing yourself, even in that space, just like you could drink, kill yourself with 6 liters of water in, drinking it in half hour. So it's really about knowing yourself and how much you need. But once you hit a certain point of homeostasis or balance, then you can adjust it more appropriately. And that's the same with medications. It's just that medications actually work too well. Almost all medications work so well, and they turn things off. And that's where people get confused. So if you have massive heartburn and reflux, you can use an acid blocking medication, which is amazing. You can't be on it for 10 years and just chewing your food 2 times and wonder why you have heartburn and reflux, because you'll eventually start to create lack of absorption of minerals, right? They work too well. And that's where people get confused about medication. All the stuff is designed in it, and that's the same with antidepressants. Well, of course, you're going to gain weight if you're being calmed too much. That's what they're designed to do, to stabilize you. So if you're calming all of your mind-body connection, the gut cells, of course, you're going to slow your metabolic rate. It's what they do.
Interesting. Yeah. And I would certainly advise people, if you're on any type of medication like that, don't do what I did and take yourself off of it without help.
No.
Because that's what I did, and I crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use your doctor. And usually people on that situation, I recommend sort of a 3, 6 month, 12 month, like a process of separating, winding down, doing other supportive mind body stuff. And then you can do a gradual, the longer you're on something like that, if you choose to do it, of course, then that's how you have to do it, because the doctors really know the effects of that stuff.
Yeah, they do. And it's no shame. We don't need to be in shame that we need that outside help. And I don't know about the rest of you, but for this woman, I got into shame about it, because especially after Melanie's death, I thought I should know better. I've been teaching this. I've got all of the tools. My tool basket is here, and I still crashed. And I have to say, there's no shame in that, because we're all going to experience that. Like trauma, any type of trauma is going to affect our mind, body, spirit. And I think that's why, and it's one of the reasons I started Breakfast with Soul in 2007, is to be together while we're walking through that. Mm-hmm. And not to be in shame because we're human. Hi, Wealthy Yogi Coach. How are you, Jacqueline? So good to see you here, my darling.
I'm great. Great to be here.
Oh, it's good to see you. Anybody have any other questions or anything they'd like to add?
I just would like to add, what I really instill in people I see is for them to educate themselves, to know their self, like we are saying, but to also educate themselves so they can educate their MD, their health practitioner, because they don't know all this stuff. Even the alkaline water versus acidic water, they have no idea. So if we can bring them, you don't have to bring them everything at once. Whatever is around your condition, take it to them and say, hey, doc, this is what I've discovered. This is what I'm doing, and follow your own intuition. Being on drugs, I saw it going back for the 2 years I did in a doctor's office. I saw people with legs this big, and they're still on the same drug they've been taking for 10 years.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's not, we have to be the ones. We have to really, and have that good relationship with your doctor. I interview my doctors. When I have a new doctor, I sit down and say, okay, they tell me their stuff. Okay, this is what we have. I said, okay, I have something to ask you. This is what I'm doing. Do you agree with this? Do you buy into this? And if they say no to all I'm doing, I'll say, bye. I'll go look for another one.
Good for you. You know,
Because
go ahead.
we have to stand in our own power. This is our body. We live in this 24/7. They're only with you for 5, 10, 15 minutes, if you're lucky. So who is in charge of this body? It's me.
Yeah. And most of us aren't taught that. We're asleep. We're like sleepwalkers. Go to the doctor. Yep. It's been crazy.
It's time to wake up.
Time to wake up. Tell me about water. And I don't know if Bruce or yourself or, you know, like, how do we know? That's why I wish Darpan had to join us today, because she is a real advocate for alkaline water. So where do we find, how do we, like Bruce, for instance, where are you getting your water supply? What are you drinking? Is it high in alkaline? I hope you don't mind us asking you this. I mean, I know you were here to listen to Norm, and now I'm sort of, you're so rich in wisdom and information. I hope you don't mind us asking these questions.
I would say that, again, you can over alkalize.
Okay.
And so just like you can be too acidic, it just is that most people in society their blood chemistry, their body chemistry is too acidic. And so therefore drinking alkaline water will get you to a saturation point and really establish a new chemistry. But you don't drink alkaline 11 water all the time, because you'll start to change. That's why nature, like Dr. Shealy says, nature, it's about 7.4. So a lot of the top waters are in that range, 7 to 8. Now we drink well water. We have really good water here ourselves. But the city water, for example, is already, I got the test report, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, might have changed, but the city water is about 7.5 to 8. The problem is it's not really the alkalinity that's the issue. It's all of the other chemicals that they put in to purify, and water actually in its dead. So for me, alkalinity is one thing, but it's actually in nature, water is naturally alive and has the spirit of Mother Earth. And it's moving all the time. It hits rocks, it moves, it turns, and water always does a vortex to reheal, to energize itself. And so the vortex is basically the healing geometry of nature. So that's why a lot of people will actually have vortex. They can even spin their water. I mean, you can take tap water, to be honest, and you could just spin it with a spoon and pray for it and give it intentions, and you will change the geometry of the water, because water is a liquid crystal and it takes on the energy and thought. That's what Professor Emoto's work on the ancient geometry, where they freeze snowflakes and, you know, hateful thoughts versus positive. It's actually true. And since our body is liquid crystal, mostly water, we lock that into our system. And that's why praying and all the work that you do works, because you're actually changing the water structure in the body. So alkaline water on a physical level can help and heal. Most water is like that. And then you can, depending on your health state, you can use machines to alkalize the water for a short period of time, and then you can tune it back down. If you have a machine, you don't just stay at the top. But the other thing is, Dr. Shealy said, eat your fruits and veggies. Plants have energized water in them. So you're alkalizing yourself. The more fruits and veggies you eat of high quality, you're actually hydrating yourself with energized water.
Thank you, Bruce, for the reminder, you know, because it's so interesting. I was very close to purchasing a water machine, but I like $4,000 to hook up to my sink. It's just, I don't have it. You know, it just sounds ludicrous to me. But I keep forgetting it's about blessing the water, turning the water, and your description of it going through the rocks. It's like, thank you for that, because it allows me to realize we, again, as was said, we can look after, we have to know ourselves to look after ourselves and what we need. And we don't need a $4,000 machine. Just need to bless it Thank you for that reminder. I'm so glad you're here. Billy, do you have a question today for any of us? Because everybody has something to offer in this group. Do you have anything that comes to mind? Sandy, you've been quiet today, sweetie.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute for a second. No, it's really interesting. I know I'm in the right place because I've heard all the things I need to hear today. My doctor's thinking about putting me on Cymbalta because I'm been trying to decide what's going on with my body because I have chronic pain and I can't decide what's going on, but I know I need to do something. I've been taking Celebrex for a long time and I know that needs to end sooner than later. My liver functions are still okay, but I weaned down from 200 milligrams to 100 last week, and I really felt the pain coming back in and headaches and a few other things. So I don't know if that was a coincidence or part of weaning off of the Celebrex, but the idea, I too went cold turkey off of all of my medications in 2016, and I think it might have been okay had I stayed on the path that I was on, but I let go of a lot, and I went back sort of into my past. I too have a problem with alcohol, and I stayed clean and sober for about 15 years and then went back out for about 10 years. And it all comes down to like self-healing and self-care.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't depend on people outside you to take care of you. I mean, you can, and I mean, in an acute situation, sometimes that's what's needed. But realistically, I'm grateful to be back on the medications that I'm on right now because I've come back to staying sober. But it's a lot different this time than it was before. I'm not just staying sober for the fact that I think alcohol is bad for me. It doesn't serve me well. But there's a lot of things that don't serve me well. So just like what you were saying earlier, which really resonated with me, is you have to do the work. And it's not just about the alcohol, it's about the other things in your life that are, causing the problems. I need a daily, discipline. And I've slowly started to put that into practice. This is a daily discipline. Even working out, I started working out again, and I do it 3 times a week. And I brought myself way back because I was in great shape about 2 years ago, and I let that go. So I can't go back to where I was at my peak. I have to slowly bring myself up, or I'll hurt myself like I did before. It's the same thing with medication. I like the idea, what Bruce was saying about homeostasis is, the medication I'm on right now, and that's what I've looked at, is not something I want to do for the rest of my life, but I have to put the other things in place first to create the homeostasis, to fortify the homeostasis. Because if I don't, and I just, make a knee-jerk reaction, I want to come off medication again, then I'm putting a lot of roadblocks in the way to being able to heal myself.
Yeah,
So,
Billy. Wow, such powerful words. Powerful words. And your story and mine are similar. I was sober for 22 years and then went back out for 7. And the pain that you're talking about is interesting for me because oh my God, now again, take what I say and leave the rest. But I started taking CBD oil on the doctor's recommendation without the THC. So I had to go through the whole thing of talking to a pharmacist first. And anyway, I took trying to wean myself off of that in the last couple of weeks. And I'm noticing all the pain in the joints and everything coming back again. So I'm thinking, well, I have another appointment because the thing is with them, the government regulate it. You need to talk to a doctor every 3 months to see how you're doing on it and things. And So, I'll probably stay on it for a little while longer, because the CBD oil, it doesn't, again, it's a natural product, and it really is keeping me off the other stuff,
Well, I talked to my doctor about CBT oil, and she said, we're not there yet.
Oh,
We have
my
to,
doctor, come to Alma. My doctor was the
Yeah.
one that suggested it, which was brilliant, I thought.
Okay.
So there are doctors out there, and I don't know how Bruce feels about, the CBD oil. I should have asked, actually, I will in our next course, which is Monday night with Norm, ask him about what his thoughts are in CBD. It's not completely legal yet in the States. I certainly won't be taking it with me when I go to Bali, but so that'll be interesting how I handle my pain there. I'll probably smoke it away. But I wanted to also bring up something for all of us that Billy brought up was, again, there's no shame. Our addiction, a pattern of behavior we were born with, may be alcohol. Some of us may have spending. Some of us may have debts that become, some of us may have overeating. There's an addiction. Addiction is not just the brown paper bag or the drug addict. It's a whole slew of things that we're not even aware of based on our patterns behavior from the day we're born till now. And there's nothing to be ashamed of with that, and that's why personally I feel we all need each other to say, we got this. We got this. Your addiction might be overeating. Mine is I love my booze. Not for today. It's always just for today. Because I want to escape. Who among us doesn't want to escape? Yes, Judy.
I have been with DARPAN's guidance on CBD oil now, and been able to eliminate all of my pain medications. I have persistent neuropathy following my my back surgery. And so my right leg is constantly, the nerve endings are constantly firing, and it's because of an issue that came up. And since starting on CBD oil, again, like you said, Lily, without the THC, because THC depresses me. It's horrible. And I don't want that feeling. I don't like to escape. I am very much grounded in the earth. And so using the CBD oil in small amounts keeps my neuropathic pain away. And I don't take any kind of pain medication, except at the moment I have been, because I have this, I've just had surgery, but it's changed my life. And I don't think it's a medical decision. I think that's a decision each one of us can make based on knowing our bodies, giving it a fair trial with somebody who knows what they're talking about. But my nurse practitioner, who cares for me in the very Western medical sense, accepts that I'm on the CBD oil, is happy that it works for me. And I really don't care what she thinks about it, because I know what it does for me.
Good. Thank you for that, Judy. That's excellent to know for all of us. Anybody else here on CBD and has any thing they'd want to share about it? Some of us are scared of it, but I had to walk myself through that.
Yeah.
Yes, Jacqueline.
So I just like many of us, our doctors have said, you have this and you'll be in a wheelchair. I'm surprised you're not in a wheelchair. I was diagnosed with MS in 2005. And I said, after the first couple of weeks, it must be a misdiagnosis. And that's what I continued to say. It's a misdiagnosis. This couldn't be happening for me. I teach yoga. I can stand, because they said, where's your crutch? Where's your wheelchair? I don't have one. I don't believe I need one. And it was a mindset. I know where I'm going and I won't be told I'm not. However, I have some inflammation. And a friend of mine gave me the CBD oil and said, this will help you. It impacted my ankles, issues with my hands. And so my doctor gave me a prescription. I love him. And he said, get on your D3 and continue. Anyway, so he gave me a prescription for the inflammation. Really, the trick was more water and the oil.
Wow. Thank you for that. You also just brought up something that I was going to ask Norm about and I forgot, but he really emphasizes, and I think he said 5,000 the other day, and I thought, whoa, that's a lot. But it's D3 for depression. Take your D3 every day. So I'll ask him again, or if some of you here have his email anyway, you can also ask him if you're taking vitamin D3, actually how much. I thought he said 5,000, but that seems like an awful lot.
Lily, that's
Yes.
what Darpan recommends.
5,000.
That's about what he takes. Now I take 3,000 a day, and had it tested through a naturopath who was surprised that I wasn't vitamin D deficient before she knew I was taking 3,000 a day.
Okay.
But yeah, Darpan takes about 5.
Oh, well, I'm only taking 1,000, so I'm going to up that. Yes, Elaine?
I take 5.
Do you? Okay, I'm glad I brought it up then, because it'll be interesting to see what Bruce thinks of that. Yes, Elaine? You need to unmute, sweetheart. Elaine, you're not unmuted. Hold on, see if I can unmute her. There you go. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you.
We have seasonal affective disorder. And when we come off the winter months, some of us could start to feel a bit better. But that winter without the sun in this country is really hard on us. And that's why the vitamin D is really, really good for us. And they've actually done tests where they've sent patients there are some people so bad in the winter months that they actually go to a southern climate, to a Caribbean place, right, country, and how they're better, like they're just better. And so the D3 is really, really important. And even in the diagnosis of MS, my sister had it. And they even say that in Canada, the number of people with MS is really, really a high percentage. And they really do believe that part of it is our winter months, is the 4 seasons that we have here, and that we're not getting enough vitamin D. So vitamin D, and it's really good for depression. Because it's all about depression. So yeah, D3 is really important, really important.
Thank you for that, Elaine. One of the things that I'm confused about, and I don't know if the rest of you are, and again, Bruce, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you're the expert here, the educated one. Well, we're all educated on different things, but as a nutritionalist, are there different types of Ds? Like we say D3, but are there different types of Ds?
There is, but that's because you can get a synthetic version called D2. But that's it's basically a pharmaceutical kind of, they artificially make it. Really, D3 is the natural version, which you're naturally synthesizing in a lab. But in your body from sunlight, you get way more than just D3. There are all different types of D, different pathways. And that's why sunlight is more important than taking orally D3 to reload. D3 is very important. I'm not saying not to take it. I'm just saying that's why when Elaine said people go south, especially for seasonal affective disorder, there's so much more to the sun and Mother Earth than D3 from the sunlight. And so you're absorbing all the different radiation, beneficial radiation, and it's UVB light that makes you absorb it. So sunlight makes you convert cholesterol in your skin into vitamin D. That's why so the darker the person's skin, and this is for Canada, that's why Elaine's right, anything north about the 43rd parallel, they say, so the top of the US and north, or if you cut across the earth, then the whiter the skin has evolved to extract more sunlight and convert D in the northern climate. The darker the skin is more sunblock, which would be, of course, in the tropics, more advantageous. So the darker the skin in the northern climates, when people move, that I always say the the darker the skin, they're going crazy by the end of October in Canada for a southern trip. And then you keep going brown to white. And by the time you hit February, all the white people are going crazy for the holiday. But that's why you find a lot of people. And then when people emigrate to Canada, they find that over the years, you just gradually you're losing the ability. So there's an interesting component to sunlight and skin color. And so going back to knowing thyself, we have a lot of different genetics, but the D is very important. And it is true, most of us are deficient. And you hit a saturation point. So in the wintertime, I'd say 3,000 to 5,000 for the average person would be good quality.
So what happens, like I usually use the oil and dip it in here and whip it up. What is the difference between taking it in a liquid form or the pill? And I'll tell you why I like the liquid better. And I don't know, and I only mention that to see if anyone else experienced it. I know my body, and I guarantee you, when I take too much of something, I feel my liver. So I know that I'm having a hard time getting it through the liver. So when it's in pill form, that's why I like the liquid. Is there any correlation with that, or does anybody have that experience?
Vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, so you need oil, either somehow to get it into. That's why it's common in higher fat foods, if you can eat it with fat. In a liquid version, you just would absorb it better than in a dehydrated version. It would take a little longer to get into the system. So that's why a lot of the better companies will put it in coconut oil, a better quality base. There's different MCT oil to just clean it up, and a lot of the better ones. So, but it does, you can get it in tablet form. It doesn't get absorbed as quickly. That's really the theory. And sunlight is the best.
Yeah, and if we have any liver issues, if we've had, anything we take is going to affect it. Right. I know Elaine and Anne has a question, but I just want to mention, so Jackie, you're saying 10,000? Wow.
Yeah, how many?
Yeah, that was for me.
Okay.
Well, and that makes sense. Like you're looking at what your body requires and timing and everything, then you can use it. Some people will do 20,000 a week one time, because you typically synthesize about 20,000 international units of D within an hour of sunlight, but it's a stepwise fashion, right? It's different than taking it orally. So that's how some physicians will titrate or balance it out depending on your chemistry. And sometimes you need it. Like Judy was saying, she had her blood tested with a naturopath. So then if you get to a point where you're in 150, a normal range, then you can use X amount to sustain it, or you can just bring it down. Maybe you have it 3 times a week instead of 6, depending on, what your goals are.
And that brings up a good point, is that it's individualized. What is good for me or good for Jackie may not be good for Lynn. Like we have to know ourselves that well. So that when I'm taking something and I feel my liver, I think, oh, okay, Harry said that was good for me, but not for this body.
Yeah.
Like
if you get good at muscle testing, it's even better, right? You get it yourself. So
yeah, we should do a Breakfast with Soul with how different ways that we test ourselves. It would be a great session, actually. Elaine, you have a question, love, and then Anne.
Just one more thing. They say 15 minutes of exposure. Like we're so into the sunblock now that we're even blocking that with all this, right? We're blocking the effects. And I heard that 15 minutes of exposure to the sun without any block is total vitamin D, what you require every day without having taking anything. Is that right, Bruce?
You're right. Depending on if you have a good already saturated, Elaine, like if you're already in good state, that is true. You're getting a lot of it. And a lot of D deficiency and the increase in things like MS does correlate with the dermatologist's recommendation starting in 1988 to sunblock everybody for fear of skin cancer from the sun, but you're actually blocking your vitamin D synthesis with the UVB light. So you can actually see skin cancer rates have gone up astronomically, almost to parallel the dermatologist recommendations of being overzealous to try and block as much sunlight as possible. So again, it goes back to like way too much of something. That's created a bit of an interesting scenario. And again, my white skin, I'm not going to Jamaica in January and not use a bit of sunblock and think I wouldn't lie out in the sun at midday anyway, so I'd use my wisdom. but I would use a little bit if I needed to, because it would actually counterbalance, because I'm like Lily White, so Lily White.
So I'm going to challenge us all for the next month. Think about this for a moment. Like, take Elaine's 15 minutes a day and let's add 3 minutes to it. As Dr. Shealy was saying, 18 minutes a day when you're out in the sun, now that we can get out there until the 15th of June, every day, let's sit out there for 18 minutes doing the autogenetics. Like, and eat whatever fruits and vegetables. Like, I'm going to challenge myself anyway, and I'm going to give myself a month of doing that every day. And my saboteur in the 12th house might, by the 7th day, say, I had enough of that. So I'll be reaching out to one of you because I'll need a kick in the pants to keep going again. I might be able to suggest it. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try. So I think it'd be a good thing for all of us. Lynn Hun, before we go to you, I know Anne had a question or something she wanted
Lily,
to share.
just a comment. He had said to start off 18 minutes twice a day for 3 months. So therefore, okay, do your sun that you're talking about, and then go when the moon comes out, go and stand under the moon and do your 18 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anne, you wanted to say something?
I just was going to ask Bruce if there's, so the vitamin D, and then there's other minerals and vitamins we take. Is there any way that we can take too much? Like you were saying, you know, to balance things, but how would you know? So if I take 3,000 vitamin D3 or whatever, can you take too much? If you take 10,000, is it going to make you sick at some point? Or like, that's my concern, is that you can do too much of a good thing.
Your body will never lie.
You can definitely do that, Anne. So that's why getting it tested is a nice way to know. If you take excess D and you don't have enough vitamin K, or vitamin K2 is one that's needed to offset vitamin D, you'll actually create osteoporosis as one side effect of excess vitamin D, because you'll absorb a lot more calcium in the short term, and then your brain will shut off and say, we have way too much, and it will stop absorbing calcium. It's one of those balancing acts. And so there's a lot of things, vitamin A, D, K, and E all go together. And you need vitamin A usually in about 4:1 to D in order to create balance in your tissues. So if you take way too much D, like just popping it, 10,000 a day for 4 months, you definitely will create nutrient imbalance and cause health issues.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to clarify. Can I make a comment, Lily?
Sure.
I'm just wondering, because I do a lot of energy work, a lot of healing energy modalities and so on. You know, sometimes I wonder if we can get to our root cause, or get to, like say, Billy's pain. I was listening to that and I was thinking, taking medication or the CBD oil or whatever, but is there a way to maybe get into our bodies and know what's causing this pain, so that we can actually get to the root cause and heal it? I mean, that is like what my goal in life is, I guess, is to get to the place where I have enough love for myself, or whatever it is I need. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's such a great insight. And one of the things, I think we go back to what Dr. Norm said, we go back to any of the teachings, use the tools in your toolbox. You are one of the most creative people I know. So you are in tune with something bigger than yourself each and every moment. And it takes skill to sit down and listen when my liver is starting to act up. Or if I've got something going on in my chest and lying there in the morning, think, oh, I know what that is. So I'll go to the doctor and discuss it with her. It takes skill. It just takes practice. And again, to go back to what we discussed earlier, we all have this ability. However, we will sabotage it because we don't understand our own empowering selves. We will sabotage it because we lack the self-worth, self-esteem of know thyself. We think, oh, no, I got to go find somebody else to help me with this. You got it. You know this. It's just believing in it. Go into the pattern of behavior that's in that second house of yours, the second and the eighth. And that's where, those are the two that will help you intuitively. Those are the two. And yes, Elaine.
A friend of mine years ago said depression, and this is not said lightly, can be a gift to us, because it can make us sit down and say, okay, what's going on? What is going on? With, and we do have the answers. They're all in us. And so that, because I've suffered from depression a lot of my life. And so, and I'm right now I'm on Cipralex. And but it's true. It does. You're feeling, and you just say, all right, what's going on? What's going on? And it really does give you an awareness of your life, really.
Yes,
So
it's decompressing. When we're depressed, we're actually decompressing from something,
Mhm.
We have to go deeper and find out what it is. And if we can't, because we don't trust our own intuition, then we reach out and say, help me. I mean, don't be afraid to go out and ask for help. There's no shame in that.
no shame.
No shame. I've had to whack myself with that many times.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Mhm.
Ask for help. Wow, this has been a very empowering morning. I do hope that you, those of you that are not on the Breakfast with Soul, just let me know and I'll go in and add you so that you are aware of what we're doing on a monthly basis. But as Judy also mentioned earlier, this is about encouraging one another. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's just being in the collective with the joy and the love and the depression that we are decompressing on a daily basis, especially during these times. We're all being called, like we are being called in a way we've never have before. And are we answering that call?
No.
And that call is saying, yes, yes, I hurt today. Can you help me? Yes. I'll try that. Yes, I'll take the risk. Yes. And Kelly, please let me know if you'd like to go on, because we meet once a month and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun getting to know everybody, and each and every one of you are so filled with wisdom and sharing it with one another. There's nothing to fear because we are in the arms of the spirit of your understanding, of our understanding. So before we close off, let's just take another deep breath. And a special thank you to Bruce, for joining us and being so open and taking our questions. I mean, God love you. That Jupiter heart is wide open also of giving and receiving. And we're so grateful for that. So at this present moment in time, we thank our ancestors for joining us. And let them come in one by one to literally touch you, that you're not alone. None of us are. We're surrounded. The ancestors, our friends, our spirit guides. We thank Archangel Michael and Uriel, Sandalphon. We thank all of the wisdom of the universe for joining us this day. And most of all, to each and every one of us for being here in the light of freedom, the light of just being who we are. In God's name, amen. Well, my dear, I love y'all. What? I love y'all, and I hopes to be seeing you now the 15th. So the 15th of June, you never know. I'll be looking again for another guest, but I will look forward to seeing some of you. Now, any of you that have done and Billy, I can take you through that process, but Fate Destiny, we meet on the 4th of every month, and we go through different houses. And I'm going to ask somebody to join us the 4th we enter the 10th house. If she doesn't, I'm not going to take it personally, but at least I'm going to try. So you never know who we're going to have with us for our Fate Destiny. And please do not go into, I ask you politely, not to go into any of the fears that my other friend has of, well, I don't know as much. Yes, we do. We're alive. We're alive. That's all we have to be today, is alive, and let everything flow in. So I look forward to those of you that have the archetypes done, seeing you on the 4th of the month, and then the 15th for Breakfast with Soul. Yes, Kelly.
I just want to say thank you for letting me join today. I loved it. And thank you, Susan, my best friend in the whole wide world, for inviting me. Anyway, I just found this absolutely fascinating, very informative, and very inspirational. So thank you.
You're welcome, Kelly. And you know, it would not have been the same if you weren't here. Because sometimes,
I know.
yeah, even if we don't say anything or we don't share sometimes, I always think of us as holding the space. It's like pillars. So you were one of our pillars today, and we're so grateful for that. It holds us all in space and place. Anybody else have anything they want to share before we close off? I could hang out with you guys all day.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling.
Thanks, Lily.
For inviting me. Yes.
Yeah, we hope to see you on the 4th, but come in anytime. You don't, please understand, with Breakfast with Soul, you do not need to be invited. This is your sacred space anytime you want to come in. And Judy, honey, I hope you feel better, feeling better. Let us know how we can help in any other way.
Thank you very much, Lily. I'm going to be sending you a little message.
Okay, love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Love from
Thank you all.
Bali. We love you. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you, Lily.
Bye.
Bye.